I'm Isa Tablan. I'm a Ginger Roots Fellow at Vela, New Orleans.
I'm Al Alcazar, and I've been in New Orleans for about 54 years. I teach at Loyola University in New Orleans. I've been there for 40 years. I studied to be a priest. In fact, I did the whole thing, 12 years. 4 years in high school seminary, 4 years in college seminary, and 4 years in graduate school seminary. And I wanted to be a priest because I really wanted to do something for the community. And I thought, a priest is a community leader and brings people together. But as I stayed in the seminary, I learned other things about ministry. Ministry really is about doing something for the least of our brothers and sisters. So it has to do with, liberation. And one of my pastoral assignment, if you're in college seminary, they want you to have an experience of ministry. So what they do is they put you in a community, in a poor community, and you're supposed to do something. I was asked to work as a pastoral person at a slum community called the Smoky Mountains in the Philippines. And I was asked to teach them how to pray the rosary. And I know how to pray the rosaries. I think you know how to pray the rosary. But when I got there ready to teach the rosary, there was nobody. And the woman in charge of the place said, Al, the people that are supposed to learn to pray the rosary are not here because their food came late. I said, wow, their food are delivered in poor community? And then I learned that the food comes from dump trucks in the city that dump their trash. And out of that, they get things that they could sell and they get food that they could eat. I couldn't believe it. People eating from a trash dump and getting their livelihood from a trash dump. And I was supposed to teach the rosary to these people. And I could. There's communion in the church, but I think there should also be communion in the community. And that communion is always together. It was a Baptist minister that taught me the real meaning of communion, Dr. Martin Luther King. He said the most racist hour in America is 11 o'clock Sunday, where people have communion in the church, but there's no communion in the community. So I've been trying to find that solution. One day I'll find it. One of my favorite community organizing story, in addition to working at the slums, when I was being chased by Marcos's soldiers, sometimes we would hide in churches. But one particular night, we were running, and the Catholic church we went to was afraid that they might get in trouble. So we ended up at a Buddhist monastery who took us in. And they didn't ask any question, they just let us in. And one of the Buddhists told me a story that has been very important in my life and has helped me with my faith as action in community. He said, once upon a time, when you ask a Buddhist if they believe in God, they tell you a story, and it's called the parable of the arrow. And so the story goes like this: once upon a time, there was a man who grew up in a village, and he liked to walk around, talk to people in the village. The village, at one end of the village, was a lot of trees. And he enjoyed, walking under the trees and walking around the village, talking to people. But after 20 years, he said, I need to explore other places. So he left the village. But after 20 years, he came back, and he was walking up and down the village. And as he was going near the trees, he was shot with an arrow on his chest, and he fell. and 4 of his friends saw him on the ground lying, bleeding. And so 4 of his friends came. And one friend said, well, we need to pull the arrow out because otherwise he would die. But another friend said, well, we need to find out first in what direction the arrow came in, because if it came in this way and we pulled it out this way, it would damage the internal organs. And then another friend said, no, we need to find out if the arrow is poisoned or not. Because if the arrow is poisoned, then we can't pull it out this way, we have to pull it out that way. Because if we pull out this way, we would put the arrowhead that is poisoned twice in his body. And the other one said, the fourth one said, well, we need to stop the bleeding. And as the 4 were talking, the man died. So when someone is wounded, do you have a conversation? Or do you take that man to somebody who knows how to heal the wounds? So when you have an issue that impacts the community, do you talk or do you organize? If there are 4 of you already, then you need to put together your compassion and do something to save this person. Many of my Jesuit heroes were killed doing justice. You've heard of the Jesuits in El Salvador. In November 16, 1989, they were killed because they taught social justice in the classroom. And killing in El Salvador at the time was also a message to those who are social activists, social justice workers. And so they killed the Jesuits by shooting them in the head because they didn't like what they were teaching, and they didn't like what they were acting, because what they taught, they acted. They taught liberation, spirituality. Well, when I came to Loyola, the Loyola University Community Action Program, which was founded by one of the students, it was started as a justice group. But because of changes, when I got there, it was all work of charity. Yeah. They had a group for the elderly, they had a group for kids, come and play the Loyola during weekends. It had a group for, bringing food to the homeless, but it had very little thing about social justice. So I thought I'd introduce hunger and homelessness, bringing food to the hungry, but at the same time asking why people are hungry. I had a quote from a Latin American leader who said that, when I bring food to the hungry, you call me a saint. When I ask why they are hungry, you call me a communist. That's Bishop Camara. So I thought there was something to his. So why are people in New Orleans hungry? Is it related to racism? Is it related to sexism? Is it related to illiteracy? Is it related to poor education? So we look more deeply into hunger and homelessness. And so we organized Hunger and Homelessness Group. Also during that time, apartheid was being questioned, and rightly so. It has always been questioned, but the questioning was never heard until, the world became aware of it. We also discovered that Shell was a powerful business in Africa, and that Shell was silent about apartheid and did not support anti-apartheid movement. And one of my distant heroes, because I didn't know him, I only knew his poems, Octavio Paz from Mexico. So I didn't want to be silent, because I know that my silence, that kind of silence poisoned me. Not the silence in meditation, which is full of life, but the silence that is poisoned by not saying anything about the injustice that you're surrounded with. And justice means learning with your head, learning with your heart and learning with your hands. And so, when we were in the dining room, we connected with the grape workers. Because when the workers were harvesting grapes and planting grapes, because they were immigrants, it was okay to spray pesticides while they're working. And no one was doing anything about it. And everybody was silent, which is one of what I call silenced poison, or what Octavio Paz called silenced poison. So I didn't want to be silent, at Loyola. And I organized students to come together, a different student organization, and say, this is supposed to be a life-giving activity, dining. But our dining with grapes, we participate in a killing activity. So we need to boycott grapes, just like we boycotted a part shell. And at first they didn't listen to us. So I gathered students to sit on the steps that lead to the vice president for student action, for students. And so we sort of blocked the steps so no one could go to the vice president's office. I mean, we were not doing anything, we were just sitting there. But sometimes doing nothing is doing something, depending on where you're sitting. And so a week of that, then the vice president said, okay, we need to listen to you. And eventually we stopped buying grapes. That was one example.
Yeah, wonderful.
And the other I mentioned to you earlier about bringing food to the homeless. So community organizing is doing something about the wounds.
Yeah, taking action. Yes.
Together.
Thank you. So, talking about community and action, what does community mean to you?
Exactly the same that I said. Community are people hurt by an injustice, hurt to the point that they want to do something about it and want to get in trouble for it. Community organizing, a big task of community organizing is what they call research action, meaning that you listen a lot, especially listening to those closely affected by the problems. So listen to those that are affected by the problems, do the research in all areas about what has been done to this problem. Look at the organizations that have done something about this problem. Find out what your organization can do, and then do it together. And then keep doing it, being grateful to those that took part, listening again, making adjustments. If the first round didn't work, do it again.
You were talking about organizing with the students at Loyola and the people at Loyola. Like, when you're engaging with these young people, what have they taught you anything, or what have you learned
They've taught
from
me a
them?
lot. They've taught me a lot. Especially questioning, how do I update the old knowledge that I have? Wisdom is really knowledge applied and tinkered with. There's a student who was homeless who got a sandwich from me. Part of my job at Loyola is to, like I said, bring sandwiches to the homeless in Lafayette Square. And there was this guy who was homeless from Houston. And he was looking for a job but couldn't find a job. They came, a couple of homeless people came to Loyola with us. And then one returned because it was winter, cold winter. And he asked if he could stay in my office that night. And no one had ever asked me to sleep in my office before because that wasn't allowed. But this guy doesn't know the rules of Loyola. And it was freezing outside. And Gregory said, "This is Dr. Al, can I sleep in your office?" Now, you're a social justice minister. A homeless person is trying to avoid a freezing night and asking to sleep in your office. What do? You break the rule, right? And you let him sleep in your office. I said, "Yeah, stay here, but don't go use the bathroom outside. Go use the bathroom right next to my office, and I'll give you the key to the bathroom." And he did. And then he slept there. I said, "Wait, don't get out until I come." So I came and he said, "Thank you so much. Saved my life." And then the next time he said, "Dr. Al, you think I could come to Loyola?" And I said, "I don't know." So I talked to the president, who at the time was a friend of mine, Father George Lundy. And I said, "Father Lundy, there's a homeless kid that thinks he could come to Loyola. What do you think?" He says, "Well, let's give it a try. We don't have any record of a homeless person coming to Loyola yet." We put him as a receptionist, and we gave him a room in the dorm. Not in the main dorm, but in the dorm used to be the Dominican campus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Dominican campus was sold to Loyola. So Gregory stayed there. And then, to make a long story short, he graduated. And then, last I heard, he was teaching English in Santa Barbara. So Gregory taught me how to break a rule for the sake of life.
My last question is, what are your hopes for the next generation of organizers and activists?
When you mention hope, the best author about hope, the best guide for me with regard to hope is the North African theologian and philosopher St. Augustine. Or sometimes we call him Augustine here in New Orleans. St. Augustine says hope has two daughters. One daughter is named anger, the other is named courage. Anger gets upset when she walks and sees the injustices around her, and she really gets depressed. And her sister courage says, "Anger, I'll take care of you. Let's work together." And together they approach things that make them angry and turn courage and anger into hope. So I hope that our young people be angry at the injustice, but also make sure that their anger doesn't become hatred. Because hatred kills. So I hope that our young people keep their passion for everything, keep their anger, but also use their passion to prevent their anger from leaking into hatred.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Can we just clap for a moment? Wow. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you stopped because I used up all the English words I know.